Joining us now, Congressman, District 1, Republican. I'm in District 4. Rob's in District 1. He knows a little bit about conventions. He's won one of those, and he is joining us now, Congressman Dr. Rob Wittman. Good to have you with us, Doc.
John, good morning. It's great to be with you.
The National Defense Authorization Act, I know you didn't think it was the perfect bill. These things are like making sausage. They never are. You voted in favor of it. Why? What's your take?
Well, John, I believe that our number one objective now has to be to rebuild our nation's military readiness. We are well short of where we need to be. Now, this National Defense Authorization Act takes a significant step forward in rebuilding that readiness. And readiness is simply this: providing the training, equipping our men and women in uniform, and making sure we're modernizing our force to keep up with our adversaries. Unfortunately, the military has been allowed, through a variety of decisions made by the president and, unfortunately, folks in the Pentagon, to be able to degrade. Some of that also caused by the sequester. So today we are struggling to catch up in a world that's much more dangerous, many more adversaries out there than what we've had in the past. This bill, I think, takes a significant step in that direction. It does, I think, all that we can reasonably do and efficiently deploy dollars. You know, I get concerned about trying to throw too much money at a problem, because always when you try to do that, you have inefficiencies, and then, you know, a year or two down the road, you hear about money being wasted or money being thrown into the wrong area. So I think we'll take a significant step forward in this bill. I think we'll do it in the right ways to make sure that, you know, we get training back up and we get aircraft maintained. I mean, we're in such position right now where in the United States Marine Corps, only 38% of their rotor-winged aircraft, their helicopters, are actually ready to fly today. And based on the 10-year average of availability of fighter aircraft, 84% of those aircraft today are not available if called upon for a military mission. I mean, that's how atrophied our forces have become, and it takes a significant amount to get that back. We're having pilots that are getting half of the time flying that they need to be minimally proficient to fly in those situations. Mm-hmm. You know, if they have to go, they're going to fly. The problem is when they fly with a lack of training, there's a significant amount of increased risk, and that's just fancy words for saying, you know, more of these pilots will get shot down and they'll lose their lives, which is not what we need to be doing as a nation.
Okay, so look, anytime you put one of these together, there's always going to be things in it you don't like, right? But it seems like, Congressman Rob Wittman, what you're saying is that the majority of what was in there got done, what had to get done, so you voted in favor of it. Now, you got to reconcile this with the Senate version, right, which is $18 billion under what the House has authorized. How does that work? What happens now?
Well, it'll go to a committee of conference, John, and we will work out the differences between the two bills. It will be more of a challenge since the difference between the two bills on where we put the dollars is significant. So
right.
We will have to find a way to be able to make that happen. But I feel pretty confident that we will do that. You know, we have gotten a National Defense Authorization Act out of Congress for the past 54 years, and I see no reason why we shouldn't do it this year.
Okay, now let's talk about chaos on the floor of the House. I can't even say this with a straight face. Your majority leader, Kevin McCarthy, not the Kevin McCarthy who starred in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the majority leader from California, although he was snatching bodies yesterday. That's my little play on words. Of course, my millennial listeners would have no idea on earth what I'm talking about. The 1950 classic sci-fi thriller Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Kevin McCarthy. This was pretty funny. So, I mean, it isn't. But you've got this amendment by Representative Sean Maloney on transgenders, LBG fairness with the contracts. You can get into that in a minute. But the clock had ran out. That amendment carried, and apparently the Republican leadership kept the clock open. And then your majority leader went around and he twisted 7 arms, took him about 15 minutes. They flipped their votes, got to 213. It was defeated, and Representative Maloney and others going bananas, saying it was a foul, saying it's not regular order, blah, blah, blah. What happened?
Well, Representative Maloney's amendment came up, which created special provisions for LGBT individuals as it relates to how contracts are managed by contractors with the federal government, and what we looked at it's truly a situation of First Amendment rights, of being able to freely practice your beliefs and how you run a business. And I thought it was pretty fundamental. I voted against the amendment, but there were some others, for whatever reason, that voted no. The majority leader, I think, went around to maybe give them a little more information about the amendment. I know that Steve Russell, who's a colleague on the House Armed Services Committee with me, had a provision in the NDAA that came up as an amendment that would state clearly, what people can freely practice under the First Amendment as they do their business, which to me is one of those fundamental liberties and freedoms in this country, and we have to be careful about how far we go in believing somehow that we are helping. And in this situation, actually, I believe you're taking away liberties and freedoms. So, he went around to talk to others, I think, to get them to at least look at this amendment from a little bit different perspective, and that's his job as the majority leader, and kept the vote open. And that's happened at other times, and it was an amendment vote. So the argument on the other side was that the people that were to change their vote were supposed to come to the well of the House floor and pick up a card and go physically do that. But those votes can remain open at the voting card station, where you put your card in the vote on a two-minute vote throughout the duration of the vote. So, the other side didn't like that, but that's part of the back and forth. It certainly took longer than what any of us normally experience with these amendments, but that's purely within the purview of the majority leader. If he feels like there are folks there that he needs to contact to talk to them about the amendment, and that's what he did. I understand the other side not liking it, but it's happened on the other side when they were in the majority also. So it's not without precedence. And when you talk about a regular order, the regular order is to make sure that folks have the opportunity to fully understand what's in an amendment, and that's what Majority Leader McCarthy was doing. It was interesting to watch the dynamics on the floor after the vote, and how spirited people were with that. But the debate takes place. People trade their comments back and forth, and the vote occurs, and it's done, and then you move on. Remember that this is going to go to a committee of conference, so there'll be continued discussion back and forth about what ends up in the final piece of legislation. So the amendment process is just the first step.
Well, look, I think you hit it on the head, Congressman Wittman. You're in the majority, and when Nancy Pelosi was a speaker, this went on all the time. It's part of being in the majority. That's why being in the majority is so critical to what gets done. And on one hand, you can say that McCarthy overextended the grace of the time period for vote. On the other hand, my position is we complain all the time, we meaning me and my listeners, we complain all the time about no leadership in House leadership, right? No leadership. They don't stand for anything. They don't do anything. Ryan doesn't back our presumptive nominee. He couldn't even carry his own state. I don't really care what poll Ryan thinks about anything. So we criticize these guys constantly. Now we've got leadership, right? You got your majority leader comes down and says, hey, this is just not a good thing for the country. So I'm going to do everything in my power to lead an effort to stop it. And I'm going to exercise whatever authority that I have vested in the fact that I'm the majority, the leader of the United States House. And so, that's really the leadership a lot of grassroots people are looking to see. And I think McCarthy did that yesterday. You might not like the optics of it, but you can't have it both ways. Either you're going to show leadership or not, right?
Well, that's right. And John, as you said, it's happened before. That's the nature of the House. And, it's the majority leader's responsibility to engage members. And if he sees as this something where he needs to engage members and said, by the way, have you looked at this or thought about the ramifications of this, and talk to them, that's part of his job. Right. And if you have to leave a vote open to make sure that people fully understand it, that's what he's supposed to be doing. So I don't have any issue with it. Obviously, if you're on the losing side after it occurs, you're not going to like it. But that's part of what our process entails, and that is making sure that people fully understand and that they do have the ability to say, didn't see that perspective. I do now look at it differently, and I have the opportunity to express what I see as a different perspective on this, which is the majority leader's job. And you're right, that is his job to lead. If you lead, you're going to be find yourself in situations where it's not always going to be the most popular thing to do, but it's the responsible thing to do. And the responsible thing to do, and I can guarantee you, it has been done by the other side when they were in the majority.
Sure.
And that's part of the back and forth about how things happen on the House floor, and it happens elsewhere. It happens in the Senate. It happens in state legislatures. That's the dynamic, as you said, of how our system of government works. It's to be expected.
Well, I commend his leadership. I think he did the right thing, and we'll see how it plays out. I asked your colleague, Bobby Scott, the same thing, and I was really taken aback by the letter that Senator Tim Kaine sent out to the Washington Post and made public. Now, Tim Kaine could be, some might say, probable vice presidential candidate if Hillary Clinton is the nominee, and complaining bitterly about the fact that we haven't gone through on Obama's commitment to take 10,000 Syrian refugees into the United States. Now, for average people, they look at this and they're like, you got to be kidding me, Senator. I don't have a job. My college graduate doesn't have a job. They're living in my home. We got homeless people all over the place. We got a water crisis in Flint, Michigan, where people are sick. We got $19 trillion in debt. Each one of these refugees costs $65,000 in order to resettle in the United States. Meantime, Japan not taking any. Kuwait not taking any. Saudi Arabia not taking any. The Arab Emirates not taking any. Dubai not taking any. Yet we're supposed to be chastised for not taking them in. The average person listening to me right now that's trying to figure out, Congressman, how to get through the weekend is just saying, where are our priorities here?
Well, John, I think, I sense the frustration everybody has, and I have the same types of frustrations. And looking at what we're doing to make sure we preserve the safety of American citizens, especially knowing that ISIS has said clearly that they are using these streams of refugees coming into various countries around the world as a way to infiltrate these countries with their own operatives. To me, that's a big issue. If you look here in the United States, and the projection is that we will be able to vet these individuals, I question the ability to do that, especially when they're coming from a country like Syria, where essentially there are very, very few vestiges of any kind of formalized government. So where do you go to find out about the background of these individuals, if there is even any information out there about their background? So how do you properly vet them to determine, are they a part of ISIS? Have they been radicalized? What safety issues would they present to the United States? I don't even know how you, in these conditions, go about doing that. And I understand the humanitarian parts of it, but I also understand, too, first and foremost, our job in the United States is to make sure that we protect our citizens.
Right.
And that should be at the very top of the list in how we look at Syrian refugees coming into the United States. And if we cannot assure that, then we should not allow them into the United States. And that's not being discriminatory. That's just placing the importance of our job into its proper priority, and that is assuring the safety of American citizens.
Congressman, you're absolutely correct. We're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Rob Wittman, Dr. Wittman, for being with us. More info, wittman.house.gov.